the whole point of astrology is to make a person's life better, right? So that's all of their life, their health, their joy, their happiness, their relationships, their money, all of it, where they're living, how they're living. So when I do a reading, basically the idea is for that hour in the first reading, I will do a reading about everything about who they are. And I always do a follow-up.
Welcome to another episode of Inspiroka podcast. Our today's guest is the founder of The Diamond Is You. I really love this name, so I'm curious what are we going to be talking about in this episode. Because her story is so special. She went from uncovering the breaking news and major world events to diving deep into astrology, healing, and the biggest questions that really matter. Her journey, it's all about the true transformation and learning to follow your inner voice. So please let me welcome in this episode astrologer, healer, and the founder of The Diamond Is You, Leandra Gillis. Leia, thank you so much for joining our interview. How is your day going so far?
It's fantastic. I am currently in Arizona where it is about 110 degrees. So it's very warm and I'm not used to it, but it's beautiful. And it's nice to be where the sun is shining and it's a nice day.
Mm-hmm. So you basically have the same weather as we have here in Bali right now, which is the best. I would say summer in Arizona must be really, really beautiful, right?
Oh, Arizona is truly one of the most beautiful places. I started coming here because my mom moved here, and it's one of those, there's a reason why artists have come here over the years. It has a really rich cultural history, obviously, with indigenous and the land, but there's a reason why artists have come here forever. It's absolutely beautiful. So it's one of those things where I didn't expect much and I got everything, way more than I expected, which is kind of how the world works. So yeah, it's beautiful. I wouldn't say it's like Bali. Obviously, I haven't been to Bali yet, but I can't imagine very often the comparison between Bali and Arizona because it is a desert. So it's a dry heat, which is a very different thing from the humidity. I'm from Boston, so that I'm more used to. So I prefer this.
That was my other question, like where you're from, but you said you're already from Boston, moved to Arizona because of your mama. So now I understand it very well.
Yeah.
So let's start our beautiful interview, beautiful conversation with your, let's say, history, or because when I studied the information, the reason especially why I asked you for this interview, because you were working for hard news, like for medias, I don't know which one was that you can mention, but you decided to change it. You told yourself like, oh, it's no longer for me. I don't want to have a stable job as a journalist because of this, because of that. So my question is like, what was the biggest shift and why did you decide to go from a stable job when people literally see you in the screen like, oh, she's a great journalist. I love, seeing her. She's giving us great messages, but you decided to move, from the stable job and become an astrologer, healer. Can you please tell us more about it?
Yeah, so basically what it is I became a producer. In my dream out of college was to work in journalism. I'd had an internship when I studied abroad in Milan, which I loved. I became fluent in Italian. And living overseas, I had a wonderful internship with W Magazine, where I really learned that while I love fashion, for me, hemlines and color palettes and fashion is a passion, but I didn't want it for my career. But journalism, I did. And working there and seeing just how much of a reach you can have, because this was before, the internet and social media. It was just right before that. So there was no social media, obviously. And the internet was like a minute from being something everybody had. So in that time, magazines were it. And what I loved was obviously the importance and reach that journalists had. And so I decided when I got out of college, I wanted to work in media. So I moved to New York. I'd gone to school in Connecticut. And it was the dream to move to New York and get a media job. And I lucked out. I lucked out because luck and fortune has a lot of play in our lives. And, I also wanted it and wanted opportunities. But at a certain point, you do have to realize the moon and the stars have to align for anything to happen. So I got a job at the local news affiliate there. And that's where I learned. And after a year in local news, I decided, Well, local was a little too blood and guts. It wasn't as thoughtful. I wanted to deal with weighty issues of the world. And I got a job in network news in New York, and I was there for 5 years. And it was a dream come true. I mean, I wanted to live in New York and I wanted to do important work. And being on morning conference calls where we're talking about issues of the
Hmm.
world was the dream. However, there's also things that are not the dream that you don't prepare for when you get the dream. And that is what, first of all, we're seeing in sort of the media around the world, which is,
Yes.
people say manipulation, but it's more, listen, everybody has an opinion. And even when people think they don't have an opinion, they have an opinion. So facts are facts, but then they can be changed. What I got into news was I wanted to inform so that we could make the world better for everybody. Just sort of the naive notion that that was possible, which, by the way, I still have. And when I saw that wasn't really happening, for me, the dream died because I didn't want to be a part of telling stories
Hmm.
that weren't completely true, right? Because
I see.
omission is also not honest, right? And not telling all of it. And this was back when, Harvey Weinstein was running Miramax Studios. Matt Lauer had been at NBC News. And it was a time when bad things were happening everywhere. Open secrets were very open and also secret, but not. And the world was in a place where openness and really dealing with issues, whether it be of race and gender and finance and class and money, was not out, was not happening. And I
Hmm.
didn't want a part of that because I thought, well, if I'm going to tell a story that's not true, I'll just go to Hollywood. Because I went to Wesleyan University, which has a big film program and a lot of people in entertainment. And I thought, I want to tell true stories. I want to be a part of looking at what's happening in our world and shaping that because, as people say, journalism is a first draft of history. And
Yep.
what I was seeing, it wasn't the full telling of history, and it also wasn't serving. And listen, I worked with a lot of amazing people. Camera and sound people are absolute heroes. They run into burning buildings. They run where, I was there for September 11th. They run towards the bad things and they tell the story because if you don't have the video footage, you can't tell the story on TV. So absolute heroes. I worked with so many amazing people, but at the business level, the decisions, it didn't align
Yeah.
with my values. Now, at this time, I didn't know anything about astrology. It was like something friends would talk about. And of course, I knew I was a Sagittarius, but now, sort of knowing obviously more about astrology and healing, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that I went for an impossible goal. I got it. And then when it didn't align with my values, I had to say, peace out, I'm gone, which, yeah,
Hmm.
most people don't do. I was always behind the scenes, so I was never on camera. What I thought
Uh-huh.
into news was that I would go on camera, but I wanted to learn the business. But what I discovered was all the power was behind the scenes. All the people making decisions about what goes into scripts and all the executive producers and the people running were not famous. And I didn't necessarily want to be famous. I wanted to kind of have the power, do the real meat, which is deciding. And that wasn't really with people on camera. So for me, it was an easy choice, but it was also difficult because when you get the dream and everybody thinks you should be happy, but you're not, and everybody thinks you have it all, but you don't, what do you do? And so for
Hmm.
me, it was a process of leaving that took it's one of those things that happens suddenly, but then all at once. But it was a knowing that it didn't align with me. And so, at key moments in all of our lives at different points, we realize I'm not where I'm supposed to be, or this doesn't fit me, or it doesn't feel right. And it's not about logic and it's not about even what you've worked towards. It's just where's the fulfillment? And for me, it meant quitting the dream job and the dream life of living in New York City. I had a rent controlled apartment. It was all very Sex in the City.
Hmm.
Very Sex in the City, including dating people from that show. But I wasn't happy. And the whole point, I believe, of our life is joy and fulfillment. And when you don't have that, something's off. And so for me, I'd always wanted to move to Los Angeles. I'd always been curious about entertainment because as a kid I acted and I thought, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not journalism. Maybe it's going to be
I
in
see.
Hollywood. And I moved to Los Angeles, and that's when I started getting involved in spirituality. I started studying Kabbalah. And that's also where I realized I'm not happy about other things in my life. I basically had what a lot of people astrologers call the Saturn return. And it all happens at this. Do you know about this? Does this ring any bells to you? Do you know about this?
I'm not familiar, I guess, with that.
So basically around the time 27, 28 till about 31-ish, we all go through a Saturn return. And then it happens
Hmm.
again later. And basically what happens is the sort of universe is like, are you on track for your soul's evolution? You have to go with the notion that there is a soul's evolution, but the point is,
Yeah.
are you on track? And that's why a lot of times people between those ages, they get married, they have babies, they move, something big happens because they realize what I've been doing doesn't align with me, or this is what I really want. And in my case, I sort of quietly blew up my life in the sense that I was like, I'm just going to go over to the West Coast and try life anew. And of course, things follow and things go with us. But for me, it was really fundamental. And that's where I feel like the experiences that I had in news, the experiences I had growing up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is an incredible town of absolute
Hmm.
privilege, and great academics and world-class thinkers. And, it's just this really wonderful place that I grew up. I started to put the pieces together of like, well, just because you're planted somewhere, some places and some things work well, and then other things don't. That's why you're, around the world from where you were born, and we have different places that call to us, and we, in our life's journey have things happen. But when you come from a culture that's like, oh, you go to school and you get this job and that's it for life, which obviously we're seeing that all crumbling, but when you're not aligning with the values of the greater culture and playing the game, which I kind of can't do, and astrologically it's really in my chart, like I just can't, where I think things are wrong and off. And so
Hmm.
for me, it just started a whole new path that I still find amazing. And I'm like, yes, I'm an astrologer. And yes, I'm a journalist. And both of those match perfectly because it's about understanding why we're here and
Hmm.
what we're all doing spinning on this planet together and how we make it better, which is always my ultimate goal, which is how journalism and astrology sort of got me here. So does that make sense? It's a lot.
It makes total sense. Thank you so much for the beautiful information about you. I think not just me, but all of the listeners would understand perfectly your past life, your present life, your like future goals, whatever is it. I have many questions right now, to be honest. That were just jumping step by step. So my first question is, these days, like you said, you have the website, you have the project, the Diamond is you, right?
Yeah.
And you put together astrology and journalism. So my question is, you still have a cooperation as a, let's say, freelance journalist for some media companies, or it just like whatever you feel you want to have it like you want to write on a blog post, or you want to have do something else.
Well, basically, when you leave legacy media and you were at the top, it's really kind of, and it's because of misalignment of values and the work, finding a place that matches can be tricky. And so while I am a
Mhm.
freelance journalist, absolutely for hire, and I have stories that I want to tell and things that I see, a lot of times the reason I left media is because they don't want to do those. And so basically I started the Diamond Is You as a place to talk about our world and things that are happening in a
I
holistic
see.
way and to get it out there. And
Mhm.
so basically it was one of those things where I was like, okay, nobody's doing this. I'm supposed to just start doing this. So the Diamond Is You was born out of first the astrology, but also in that sense, like, because I think my problem with journalism has always been and has become more clear through being a Reiki healer and an astrologer, we're not talking about things the way that we actually talk about problems between friends and between. So, for example, somebody does something horrible, and
Mhm.
it's particularly coming from, being an American and the culture here, but the notion is always very punitive. They're terrible. And it's like, well, no, because if that's your friend or somebody that you've loved and they've done some terrible thing, we have more mercy, right? And we want to give
Oh
people a
yeah.
chance. But somehow when it's a politician or a banker or somebody over there, it's much easier to say, oh, no, 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 they're just terrible. And that's actually not how we are, because as people, we're more forgiving. We actually are. But when you start talking about things in a way that is devoid of humanity and devoid of heart, then we've gotten away from the whole idea of community, right? The whole idea of why we live in a city with other people is so that other people can do things we can't do, right? To the like basics when you sort of study that in school about like tribes. It's like it's a community of people living together in their separate worlds with dreams, but it helps collective, right? It helps everybody. So somebody is the farmer and somebody is the healer and it all, or somebody's the builder and it works
Yeah.
together. But somehow we've gotten so far from discussing things in a humane way that it's become just beyond a circus and beyond dangerous, and it's hurtful, and it's actually not reflective. If you go to a cafe, you're going to have like the best conversation, enlightening conversation. Like, why can't we do that when talking about our political things, or when we're talking about, finance and immigration and all these things that are not really hard to solve or to deal with?
Hmm.
Somehow they do when we talk about them in media or in a news. And so that to me never matched. And so the idea of the Diamond Is You is, how do we talk about travel, visiting cultures? I love to travel. I love to go places. I love to find little places and tell people
I saw
that.
that. Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
the joy of life. But how do we do it in a holistic way and also in a conscious way? Because one of the things I learned spending a lot of the past years living in France, where I just got back from last week, is, why are we all traveling? Like, what are we doing? Are we going to embrace a culture? Are we going to check something off a list that completely doesn't pay attention to the place we're visiting? For example,
Hmm.
places like Hawaii, where the locals are saying, please don't come. We are trying to keep the land. We are trying to get ourselves situated. And yet people are going there. It's like, what are we doing and why? And so I wanted to bring the joys of travel and cultural exchange and learning from each other so we can make our world better by borrowing from each other, and also have fun while discussing things in a more heartfelt, holistic way, because I think that's what's missing in sort of main news and media, and also, yeah, politics and larger discussion. Like, it's not hard. It
It
doesn't
is.
have to be.
These discussions are really hard. Also, like let's say all over the world. Also in my mother country, we just really love, but they only focus for like politicians. Recently, there was a video. I don't know if it's deep fake or real one. Like there
Oh,
was an emergency car with somebody inside, just literally going around the city. The police stopped the emergency car, which is like I think you cannot do it when there's emergency. Doesn't matter who you are, you had to let the hospital car just go, the emergency car,
right.
because maybe there's a person dying inside and there's like the hospital within the range of, let's say, 3 kilometers,
Yeah.
and it's really close. So if you stop it, so the situation was like there was a politician delegation, like 10 cars, if I'm not wrong. So the cops stopped the emergency car and they let the politics just pass to the road.
I
And I
mean,
was like, guys, why you do this? Like, we are people. What is much better? We supposed to save each other. We supposed to build communities, which you explained it very well. But these days we are just like the world is trying to how to say it, like disconnect us. But
absolutely.
that's why I also do these interviews. That's why I create Inspark. Like, guys, let's find a cooperation. That's why I also live in Bali, for example, in Southeast Asia. Many people come here with new project ideas, new informations. They want to create something that puts us again together as it was long time ago. But what I see, maybe long time ago, we had everything and we didn't like it, so we wanted to play again. No.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. That's a very, well, you're in Bali, so it's not a surprise that you're saying very spiritual things, but it's that idea that it is a game of life. And how do you
It
win?
is.
By sharing, by community, by changing ourselves. That's why one of the things that blows my mind about astrology, we always think it's about that person out there, and it never is, right? So it's always a reflection of ourselves. What bothers us in another person, what bothers us, a lot of people talk about politicians these days, certain people in America that are, and people talk about them. Well, where in
Mm-hmm.
your life are you being like that? Now that's where it gets uncomfortable, right? Because people, I would never. Oh, really? You've never told a lie? You've never manipulated people? You've never done the wrong thing to get money. You've never. This is where people, I'm a Sagittarius, so I can be challenging for people because I'm all about the truth and with heart and love, as I say. But we
Yes.
got to talk about it. Like, I'm sorry, you can't be. blaming that person over there for their terrible actions and you're doing it at home, that's where we all go wrong, right? And that's where the real work comes in. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, because I'm watching people act like they've never. And you're like, I mean, really?
Oh yeah,
And they say, well, it's not the same. It's never the same, right? And that's where, again, you want mercy for yourself. You want mercy for the person next to you that you love, your family member. Why can't we extend it to the person that we don't like? You know, it's the notion that it's never how you love somebody when you love them. It's how you love them when you don't like them, right? How do we treat
hmm
people when we're not happy with them? How do we treat people that we don't like? And that's where the juice is and the magic. And that's where I think when we're all honest with ourselves, we kind of go, oh God, did I do that thing? And also when we change and are more loving or accepting or forgiving, or really get into the matter of whatever's going on, we realize, you know, if we talk with somebody, I'm not saying for the certain small portion of the people that are just evil and wrong and beyond repair. That's not most people, right? Most people, something went wrong, something went askew, somebody was mean to them, and then they decided to hate all whatever.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
or they're upset with their mother, you know, or they're upset with their father or whatever. And it's not at all negating the pain, because that has to be dealt with and acknowledged and healed. And usually when that happens, people go, oh yeah, I guess I don't hate that guy in front of me that cut me off, or I don't think my coworker that's a jerk should be fired, you know, because people can really get to some extreme levels and then that ripples. And then they don't see where that politician that they can't stand is kind of like them, right? It's not easy when
hmm
you go, oh wow, I was kind of a tyrant in the office or in my family, right? A lot of people realize, wow, I've been mistreating, you know, people in my family. And that's why I love when I do astrology readings, because I see that it practically helps people change in a way that serves themselves and
Yes.
everybody around them. And that's what we call a win-win. That's what I got into journalism to do. It's just another route.
That will be my questions later on in this interview about astrology. Like we can go more deeply because I'm also familiar with astrology. I did some readings, like ask somebody to read my aura, my soul based upon astrology, based upon my date of birth and time and whatever was necessary. But like you mentioned that you've been in medias for 5 years, you've been covering like 9/11, which was in 2001. So my question is, when was that you worked really for a deep medias? Like you were working in New York City, not for the local news, but for the one of the top one. When was that roughly?
Yeah, that was back then. Yeah, that was back then when I was working for one of those letter places. Yeah, that was in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when I quit. Yeah. So during the beginning of the Bush administration. And then I was covering the United Nations a lot. And that's the other, I mean, it was
Wow.
not good news. Um, and it was not helping. It was before we invaded Iraq. It was after Sept. It was watching the lies be told, and
Mhm.
my organization, A, because of not having enough staff, because news used to be a public service that networks had to do. So they had a certain budget. Then by the time I got there, it was under the entertainment umbrella, which I discovered when working there and was horrified. But also, we didn't have the resources. It was a small. So when the Bush administration says something, you don't have the time and the resource to investigate it.
Uh-huh.
So what I was getting upset about, especially, you know, before, but especially post September 11th, we're just running these things. We're just running these press releases like it's true. And the UN was getting involved because they were saying there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I'm at the UN covering it, listening to people say that's not true.
hmm
And yet our government and our people were saying we're doing this. And it was like, what is going on here? And me questioning that by certain of my superiors, one in particular, you know, I had some very awkward conversations where it felt like I was in McCarthyism, because they were questioning me for questioning the government. And it was very Twilight Zone, because I was like, that's our job. Like, literally, our job is to question people and to question motives. Not happening. Not happening. And the fact that, during that time now, I mean, I don't watch the network,
Mm-hmm.
but now, the daughter of the then president is on that show as a host. It's sort of just like, is anything real? Like, what is going on? Not to say people can't go into media and journalism and talk and be a part of it, but then when you question that administration or the grandfather's administration, it's a little different when you have the granddaughter there who's not going to be, by nature, because it's family, so impartial. So all these hypocrisies, that I was seeing with work and with sort of life were, not adding up. And again, this was before I was at all into astrology. But as I went on, I was like, oh yeah, there's some games being played, and I was, it's not only just that I was right, it was like my intuition, like, this isn't clean, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
good, this isn't what I got into it to do. And so how do I skedaddle out? Because before that, I covered the Bush Gore recount, which I'm sure you're not familiar with, but it was a nightmare. And I was in Florida for 3 weeks when the Supreme Court basically decided to throw out what the Supreme Court of Florida decided in order. I mean, it was just like, what is going on here?
Oh.
And so all these things today, because George Bush did not win the election, they stopped counting the votes. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is what drives me bananas when people talk about it. Like, no, he didn't win. They stopped counting. That's how he won. And they stopped counting as it was getting low because he was not going to. So I bring these things up all the time because they matter, because I feel like what I saw wasn't properly reported, but even still to this day, it's not talked about in a true way.
Yeah.
And so that was basically back when. So it was September 11th. I mean, I covered so many things of national importance, but the UN and the, international ramifications of what happened during my tenure, is something that haunts me still.
Wow. That's you really covered those tough topics during the 90s and at the beginning of 2000. I remember
Yeah.
I was child. I was born in 91, so I was like roughly max I was almost teenager. And I remember my parents were watching those news, like local news. We couldn't have access that time to like the NBC or whatever coming from USA, so we had to listen to local news from my country. And we heard about those news, about the elections in USA, about the war, whatever. It was too much so, and at that time I didn't understand. But this time I understand, like, how come those journalists, like you were at the time, can literally work for these kind of companies, search these informations, and they find out some piece of truth, and then let's say your boss tell you, we cannot post this to the public. You will literally kill the past, or you will kill the renommé of this politician or this business or whatever. You have to do it this way. And that's how many people say, like, they sit down and think about, like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it because I have a stable job, people can see me in front of camera, let's do it. But you had like a deep calling, and after 5 years you realize, okay, maybe that's not for me. Let's go to Los Angeles, try something new. And that's why you realize, oh, that's astrology. Okay. I have like a calling within me, like, let's do it. And right now you become your own diamond. You help people with Reiki healing, with astrology, which is, by the way, really, really nice one. Wow, I wish more people would be open, because these days media is literally different than a couple of decades ago. If somebody
Sure is.
if somebody publish something on local news or CNBC, whatever is it, you can double check those information on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, and there are people even talking about this information they publish. I see so many, let's say, some kind of like freelance journalist. They have millions and millions of followers, and they just talk about, like, "No, I don't think it's true," or this guy, no, 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 this is the history he was talking about. Or right now they are talking about the history that was told us. Like when I was at school and studied the history about the Second World War, the book was telling me it happened this way. But right now I see, like, no, 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 it wasn't like this. It was like that, and they
Exactly.
gave me the proof. And I was like, oh my God, why people are
Yep.
afraid to tell you the real truth, you know? If you do something wrong, just please take responsibility for what you have done. If not now, then later on, somehow it will probably happen, or somebody will be talking about. And that's why you decided also, like, I want to do the astrology and see the true aspect. That's why you have the diamond is you, where you put like some kind of information, what is going on in a holistic way. So
Yeah.
it's a really good one.
Thank you. I mean, that's the goal because that helps us, that serves us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, if we have a more merciful way of talking about our errors in society, listen, America is not working. That's been obvious forever, but it's reached a critical mass. And astrology, America just went through its Pluto return. And Pluto does not negotiate with terrorists, meaning humans that are not acting
Yeah.
well. And so Pluto will destroy anything that is not well built because it wants a solid foundation. It wants it to be solid and good and lasting and serve everybody. Astrologers for like the last, this is what sort of started me really paying attention to astrology because I was like, wait a second, these astrologers are actually talking about what the F is going on in the world. Like, that's crazy to the degree of what's going on in countries and culturally and shifts. Even the rise in the past 20 years of astrology, of, ushering in woo woo, which is just the earth and the stars and herbs and using what was on our planet for us to heal and to live with. So, like, how is that crazy? How is a pill made by a company real? How is alternative medicine a plant from, like, these guys have it so twisted, but that's what this era is about, realizing how sort of unhealthy patriarchy mentality, top down rulership, somebody being the boss of you and
Oh
knowing
yeah.
better. Nobody's going to know better for any of us, right? Nobody's ever going to know better. But we are in a world where that has reigned, and
Yeah.
that's what's getting corrected amidst, watching so much suffering everywhere. That's the thing that amazed me when I travel abroad and ever learn history, because I'm such a dork for learning history and I love to like learn and take classes. I do tours everywhere. But what amazed me was about 8 years ago when I first got to France, I was doing tours of like history sites. Their American history was teaching me better than my own history. I was
See?
getting these, and I was doing fun tours. Like, these weren't even like in-depth history. It was like a tour of a neighborhood and like a food tour of this area. They were telling me stuff about where Thomas Jefferson not only potentially met the slave who was a child that he impregnated, but they were also telling me the slave's story, the enslaved person's
Mm-hmm.
story, better than I ever learned in America. I mean, that's just bananas to me that a country that is not even so linked cares enough that they're telling a more accurate history of what our politicians were doing over there that was disgusting, and their behavior, than we learn in America. So, yeah, getting out and traveling is important, learning from other people, but also the real story. Like you said, people aren't, you know, able to so much because of the world we're in take responsibility because they think they're going to get in trouble. It's like, how about we just let people more off the hook, like we would for people in our own life, like we would want for ourselves? Let's try to imbalance. I'm not saying for the worst in society, but I'm saying let's just, let's have a moment where we just kind of give space for people to be their better selves. Because
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people, if they had the option and weren't afraid of what was going to happen, we could make course corrections so much better in every area. People have been working at these food companies, healthcare companies that are not about healing and health, right? That have been poisoning the planet, let alone their products, making people addicted and unhealthy. If we allowed more people to just say, this is not working, we need to go back, we need to just redo, I think we would find it much more successful. But,
Well, what
we're
what I
seemingly,
see, it's coming somewhere from the top because they people say like I'm just gonna jump to a conversation. Like we are almost how many like we're coming to 9 billion people every year. There's more people coming. They say like we are overpopulated. I remember a story of my friend like this is a small cherry like the tomato cherry, right? Look how many seeds I have. I'm gonna plant it, and you will see how many plants within a shorter period of time gonna grow. And within a few days, you could see the plants growing just from one seed. So there was like, from one small tomato, already 10 small plants could grow. So it's like, tell me, guys, how is that even not possible? Because people these days, we are just like what I see also here, especially restaurants, right? You go there, you eat, whatever they don't sell, they just throw it. And I also saw it in Europe or here in Asia, also in USA because I was working there.
Yeah.
Uh, like I did the work and travel stuff during my studies, and I was like, why don't you just give this food to somebody who really needs this food? We can reuse the same food. It's not like expired yet, you know. People can still eat it, and it's a really good one. But that's the other topic. But I people still think about it like, okay, if government doesn't want to think about it, well, I'm gonna take the responsibility. It's gonna give me many years maybe, but later on they're gonna agree with me. Like here in
Yeah.
Indonesia, there's big issue with plastics, right? People just like finish this bottle, just literally throw it, and suddenly you see this bottle from Java on the beach. So there is like Oceana and some other guys, I forgot the name, and they
Yeah.
do river cleanings of the plastic, and you see the video like before and after, but it doesn't change the mindset of the people, you know. So I was like, at least there are people trying to do something for this planet, but it's always coming from us. But that's literally the other topic. With these topics and solutions, we can create like really big 1 week event with specialists and try to look for a solution, you know. But
But it's important, like you said about food. I mean, in France, they passed a law that all grocery stores they have to give their food
Mhm.
to people. There's no tossing it out. They passed a law.
Oh yeah.
It's working. I mean, it's none of this is hard, right? It's just what do we care about? What are we going to put our time into? And unfortunately, the systems, I mean, I can speak more obviously for America, the systems have been always so far removed from individuals' needs and
That's the thing.
individual benefits. It's a hyper independent society, which does not work because we need each other. But also, yeah, people can figure out these problems, and they always do. We can do this. It's just unfortunately chaos keeps those in charge in charge.
Hmm.
And so I definitely know, and the astrology is showing that this era that we're in right now is about personal responsibility and sovereignty and the collective. So it's about us working together to help everybody. That's why these guys in charge, I mean, like days are numbered because it's about everybody being okay, which should not be radical or difficult at all, but humans. Yeah.
Yeah, I also do agree. Sometimes I see some posts about astrology, like there were some volcano eruptions in Etna, which is in Italy, also in
Yeah.
Indonesia, and at the same time
Yeah.
all over the world. And they were saying,
Yeah.
guys, it's happening based upon the stars astrology. It was meant to happen because it helps us to shift our mindset to like more care about ourselves, whatsoever. There's a bunch of information. And what I see, what I understand, like it also helped me. Like when I was really deep down, like literally I lost everything in my life. I almost decided to leave this planet. I was like, I had only two options. Either I just leave or listen to myself and do something. So, what I'm trying to say is when people want to change their mindset or approach to their life, there has to be something really strong that's going to tell them. Like, for example,
Yeah.
you just accidentally break your ankle. There's a number one mistake. You don't listen. Then second, third one. And if you don't listen for it, then something really deep will come that's going to tell you, huh? Either it's coming from universe or from God, but it has to be in a good way. Which is like telling you, you got to do something with your life. You have a mission. So listen finally, you know? Like literally listen.
Yeah.
So what happened to me
Yeah.
that time, God was telling me, okay, I'm gonna be listening to you. I just forgive myself. Let's do something. So since then I started to listen and I have the guide right now. I had the guidance from him from somewhere else. And I study and I listen to my intuition more. And if people do something like this, even just start listening to the intuition, not just the ego or the rush coming from the social medias or from the companies, what is going on around. They become more silent, meditation, whatsoever. They will be much more calm, you know. Even my parents, I
Yes.
try to tell them, you see, mama, this is what is happening to you. The body is already telling you stop doing this one, but you still do this stuff. I'm here to help you. Why don't you listen to me? When you told me something, I listened because
Yeah.
especially it was connected to my health, the mindset, or just like I had
Of
some pressure
course.
whatsoever, no?
Of course. And especially, I mean, I'm visiting my mom. So yeah, I know that. Like, that's why I'm in Arizona. I'm visiting her. And it's always particularly difficult when, it's people that we love and we want to
Oh
help them.
yeah.
But like you're saying, the best way is to listen to ourselves, because then that brings us the calm so that we can be present for ourselves and for the other. That's literally why the Diamond is You is all about people realizing that they are the thing, right? Each one of us. That's what I loved about journalism. Every person I interviewed was amazing. Every person has an incredible story. I was at a fair in random town in Indiana. I met the most incredible people. I was in a parking lot, and this notion that like this person is more, that's not true. Everybody has an amazing, incredible story.
Wow.
You know, the prisons, America's prison system are terrible because it's not about rehabilitation. But what I realized was, because I tended to cover a lot of courtroom cases being in New York, there were a lot
Hmm.
of major crimes and major cases. And people, it's easier to think they're terrible people and that no, something happened. Maybe a freak accident and they got in a car accident and they killed somebody, or maybe they got angry and something, anger, it's the cause of a lot of crimes,
Yes.
right? A lot of accidental crimes, a lot of it, our emotions. But what's under anger? It's our emotion. We're not loved. We're not. So this is for me why looking at astrology and talking about astrology is so important, because it gets to the basis of why we might feel depressed, why people have a hard time getting back up,
Hmm.
right? It's very natural. It makes sense. It's hard. We need community. I'm so glad that you had the pause, the space, the angels with you, whatever you want to say, that you were like, no, I like, it's a down moment, but I got this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That you changed, right? You not just said, I'm going to come back. You changed, and you changed in a way that felt better to you, right? Isn't that an amazing change to have from a hard time? I was in COVID, and I was, had been going back and forth from Paris, but being in Paris in COVID, I mean, you couldn't walk outside. As an American, it was hard, but it was also beautiful for me to watch people come together
Hmm.
for a greater good, and also be in a country where your needs were met. You weren't going to get kicked out of your house. You had money for food. Like, they figured out how to do this. There were so many lessons in that experience for me. But really, it was watching a culture and a country come together. Now, obviously, the way that Americans are raised, just like in your country, everybody, we have different values. But if we can't come together in a time of crisis, in an organized way for each other, then it's a hot mess. And I'm saying that particularly about America right now, because that's what I've seen America not do, which I've seen other places do. You see, and obviously there are terrible governments that had bad policies and were not caring about individuals enough, and that don't care about individuals enough. All of this is a balance around the world, though, right?
Hmm.
Like, there's things we can learn from other cultures. And unfortunately, believing that I'm so great or I'm this is just blocking us all from getting the best from each other and using that to our advantage. It's like, if one country has a better plan for how you feed people, or how you do healthcare, or how you do water supply, why don't we all just learn that, adopt it, and like keep going, so that we can all party and dance on the beaches of Bali or wherever we are, and have fun, and think about loftier things like, how do we all live on a planet with dwindling resources because of technology, right? Because of AI. I mean, I did a series of videos when I was in France, as a journalist. I was about the environment, and I learned so much about just how unhealthy scrolling on your phone takes energy, right?
Hmm.
You could be sitting there thinking, but people are scrolling, but that takes energy. That actually takes plants of power that we don't actually have. And so part of, obviously, astrology and this time that we're seeing is personal responsibility.
Oh yeah.
Where can we all change, and where can we all realize, I'm in Arizona, which is 110 degrees, and there's air conditioning. It is not sustainable. Arizona, Phoenix has become the fifth largest population in America. The fifth largest population
Mm.
of a city in America is Phoenix, a desert. It has
Damn.
grown in the last 10 years massively, in the last 5 particularly, with people moving post-COVID and wanting different, better quality of life. Well, are the materials sustainable? I'm sorry, is having more people in a place that relies so heavily on air conditioning for survival a
Mm.
good idea? Like, we haven't taken indigenous plans. We're not working. It's just like, who is planning these things for the long term? And this is where I get to, again, when we look at how we're living, which is why the astrology and the journalism go together. But why are we living this way? Because most people don't want to live in a way that's not sustainable. Most people want a sustainable, yeah, I want to have a nice house and I want it to work with the environment and be, compliant so that everybody can live well and the future generations have a place to live. I mean, that sounds like a win-win, but greed.
Well,
So
yeah, I see it like, for example, I also have to have an air conditioner because outside is like already 30 plus degrees. I would be really like dying in this room because everything is
yeah,
closed. But there are options, like you said, the more equal, let's say. This way, like I've seen houses, you literally build houses into the ground with concrete. And the idea is like during the winter time, inside you have roughly 20 to 24 degrees of Celsius. In the summertime, when outside is like 37 degrees of Celsius, inside you still have the same temperature. There is some houses in my country, there's a developer who makes it. But I was like, yeah, we can do it also here in Bali, Indonesia, but it's gonna cost you twice or 3 times more. So what I
yeah.
see when you want to have a solution that is more ecological, it's always more expensive. The same like
Funny.
last decades, many people decided to become vegetarians or vegan. When you see this kind of groceries or like local groceries, the price is sometimes in 5 times more than the one that you can buy in a supermarket, right? So like people want to do it, but they don't have finances for that. This is also one challenge for them, you know? So I was like,
And what kind of a world?
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's I don't want to say it's nice or great what is going on, but it was meant to happen these days. So people
yeah,
can literally grow their mindset, literally start thinking about ways, the other solutions. Because when I was born, we kind of have like a post communism in my country. So people had nothing literally, right? They had to rely on the social system, the government. But these
yeah,
days, you have to rely on yourself. So my generation is already, let's say, growing, but generation before, having is like, oh, I prefer to have like a comfort, I don't care, just, I'm almost gonna be like 60 years old, government gonna somehow support me, that's all. And then I will just die sometime. I was like, no, 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 no. You're gonna be
yeah,
60? That's a beautiful age. Look for a solution in
yeah,
your life. That doesn't mean at 60 you have maybe like arthrosis or some health issues. That doesn't mean you
yeah,
have to have it. Just find the other solution. These days there are plenty of informations. Go to astrology. It will tell you something about yourself. What is your mission? What is your passion? That's why I understand as well. It also helped me. I just put my numbers and it told me like, oh, sometimes I'm negative, I'm positive, and this is the reason why
yeah,
this is gonna help, which is nice. So
yeah.
that brings me the question about astrology. And that's a nice bridge. I always like these bridges.
Perfect.
How can astrology help us in our lives? If I never heard about astrology, but you're gonna tell me, hey man, there is an astrology, like I see you as a nice person. What if I can tell, or you can just ask him like, do you know what is your mission? What is your passion? Maybe they can say, slightly no, but mostly I don't understand. Okay, let me help you. I have an access to astrology. This might want to help you. So my question is, how can astrology help us to find, let's say, who we are? That's gonna be a nice question.
I love it. Great question. You're great at asking questions.
Thank you.
You're really an excellent at this. Um, the thing about astrology that's so magical and that blows my mind when I do these readings is it helps you connect to your own intuition. That's
Mhm.
it. That thing that you talked about meditating and spending time with yourself and how that gave you a new connection to source, the universe, and yourself. That's what astrology does, because your chart is literally a map of you.
Yeah.
And every time I do a reading with somebody, because this started, by the way, me doing readings is because I would sit in the corner at parties or at dinners and I would just do everybody's chart. And finally, I wasn't even thinking to make money from this. During COVID, a friend of a friend that I had met and sat in a party in Paris, she said, I'm going to pay you. And I said, you're going to pay me for what? Because I'm just like, oh, this is what I do. I'm a journalist, but this is my pleasure. She goes, no, no, no. This is a business. This is what you do. And I'm going to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
The gift of astrology and the connection to oneself is the knowing. When I do readings and I look at a person's chart, they're blown away because I'm telling them about themselves. I'm telling them what they've experienced. And that to them is reassuring. And I say this because this is what happened to me in my first readings,
Mm-hmm.
and what blows my mind when people talk to me, because I can't see my own chart. Like, to me, I'm like, I don't understand. So I have to have people read mine. It is amazing to me that when somebody reads my chart, they see, and these are real readers, by the way, not people, and I've studied for over 20 years, so it's not anything new. I'm able to tell somebody about their pain points, about their desires. When somebody says to me, I don't know what I want, first of all, I'm always like, that's not true, because I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm open and honest when I say things. And I'm like, that's not true. You totally do. And I'll look at the chart and I'll say this, that, and they'll go, okay. And I'm like, yeah, and this, that. I did a reading for my best friend from college. You would think I know this girl because we've gone through everything together. And I sort of read her chart and I was like, what the hell have you been doing? And she was like, what? I was like, what are you doing? You are like this. Why have you been living like this? And she was like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, oh my God, what? But whatever our life experiences, our family, the pains we go through, the experiences we have, we change, right? So we can come into this world, a fire sign and all go, 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 but maybe our family was abusive and they told us we were stupid. And so we diminish that part of ourselves. And then instead of being a person of ideas and passion, you're angry and
Mm-hmm.
combative and argumentative and unpleasant, right? Because this is why the Saturn return I talked about around 27 to that age, it's a realigning. It's like, wait a second, you got off track. So the universe is going to change it up. It's going to help you get on your track, which is why, like I said, a lot of people get married, move, change jobs, change careers.
Yeah.
I quit my dream job and moved across the country. Like, what? But that felt more in alignment. That's when I started studying Kabbalah, which is really where my astrology knowledge comes from. And my spiritual, I mean, it's what I've studied for years and years, over 20 years, is Kabbalah. And the wisdom of the stories, the wisdom of how we're living our lives. Astrology is a major part of it. The new moon, there's so much to wisdoms that are around us. It's having access to it first and being open to it. And usually when people find a spirituality, it's because they're low, right? But this is where also we have to have our own common sense. You don't give all your money to somebody. I mean, these are common sense things that aren't always so common. But also, when you're linked to yourself, which is, again, what the readings do, you realize I can have that goal or that dream. There's a reason why a dream was planted in a person. There's a reason why you grew up in an environment. A lot of times when I was growing up, my dad wasn't around. He'd been an addict and he wasn't in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, later he came back into my life for a few years before he passed away. And we had a wonderful few years together where I got to heal so much. And I remember a healer that I know, she said something to me that really changed my view of what I went through as a child, not having a dad and all of that, is she said, think about what that gifted you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I mean, what? Like, no, it was pain, but it gave me humility, right? It gave me empathy. I could have been a six planet Sag. I mean, and it was really powerful to think if I had my two parents together in love, because they did love each other, it was just a mess. If I'd had two parents that loved each other and I was in a stable home, maybe I would have just been a total nightmare. Maybe I never would have connected to feelings and emotions,
I see.
because for me as a six aspect Sag, it's a little more tricky. Maybe I just would have never cared. Maybe I would have never gotten the empathy inside of me and the ability to care that I got because I went through the pain. And it was a real realignment of, oh my God, we know we get gifts in the chaos and the challenges of life, but really that was like a fundamental one that made me go, oh my God, like that childhood pain gave me access to care in a different way. And when I look at people's charts and I see something and I might not, it's not, I recently did a chart and it was clear this person had gone through some horrific childhood abuse. And I've just mentioned that they had a challenging childhood and that I'm not surprised that they are distant and I'm not. And this is a person I didn't know from anything. And I'm telling them how they are in personal relationships. They felt so seen and they realized that that pain they've been carrying, it gave them a window like you can let it down, like it served you as a child to create the shell, but now you're grown up, so you don't have to. And seeing people like that, knowing that their pain is somewhere on a map, which is their astrology chart when they were born, it makes them feel like, okay, I got this, because somehow there's a plan, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
terrible or doesn't make sense, even though I feel ostracized. Recently I was reading for somebody, and in their family, they don't have a chart at all like everybody else. And I said, that's a thing. That's hard. It's a gift, but it's also hard. And they felt so seen because they thought they were crazy. And it's like, no, you're not crazy. You're just different, very, very different from the people you're around. But go out in the world and, you'll find your people. So that's really, to me, the gift of astrology. It helps somebody connect to themselves.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm really happy
Does that
that
make
you,
sense?
yeah, it makes sense. I'm really happy that you overcame one of the biggest traumas, I would say, like when one of the parent is not taking care of its child, Like I see also here when I talk to my friends or the people I meet, they say like, yeah, I'm coming from a like broken family. My father left me when I was 5 years old, and we don't have a great relationship or somebody passed away. So yeah, it was meant, let's say that soul chose this kind of life so they can be, but nobody tells you like, okay, it's okay, you're gonna be like this, so maybe it means like this for you, and that's what you have to learn. You have to find it by yourself. Imagine like we got born, we got only birth certificate, but imagine you have all of the knowledge, like they give you, okay, this is your astrology paper about you, this is like what you have to do. Imagine like for the beginning, some of the souls, they come to this world, they already know, like literally when they start talking, mommy, I'm gonna be doctor, or something like this, I'm gonna be
Yes.
cop.
Yeah.
But that's the best. It's literally their dream, and they're gonna do it for the rest of their lives. But for some people, because we are washed by the school system, but so many expectations, nobody tells us. On the way around during our lives, we just suddenly lost, and unless we start searching for the answers for the questions, we never find like what is our passion. And it could start like asking, like for example, there is somebody working for a factory company, let's say is around 30 to 40 years old, and his friend's gonna ask him suddenly, dude, you want to work for the factory for the rest of your life these days when factories just shut down? Don't you think there's something else? And this person has a choice. It is gonna like, that's a beer for just drink. What you gonna talking about? I don't care. Or like, oh wow, what is that? Tell me more about it. Then suddenly, even your friends, like you help your friends, could like be the part of your change. That's also what kind of happened to me because I was like when I was in my 20s, I saw the successful stories when people come to become like real famous out of nothing. I was like, hey, I want to go also there. I don't want to have the same life as my parents have. Like they had to struggle many times because of job and whatsoever. But these days, everything is, I would say, much possible to reach. Find those answers. And astrology is really nice. So while we were explaining the astrology and everything, you mentioned like something like a Kabbalah. I don't know. I think I heard about Kabbalah, but I don't know what is that like really in a deep side. But you mentioned that astrology helps people to understand who they are. You just give them this kind of like reading, or you tell them like this is a meditation that's gonna help you, or I'm gonna guide you as your coach. I'm gonna help you, or how do you usually have your sessions with your clients?
So it's funny because I've become sort of named as like the astrology coach, because for me, the whole point of astrology is to make a person's life better, right? So that's all of their life, their health, their joy, their
Yeah.
happiness, their relationship, their money, all of it, where they're living, how they're living. So when I do a reading, basically it's, if a person has a certain issue, I'll look at that. But basically the idea is for that hour in the first reading, I will do a reading about everything about who they are.
Hmm.
And I always do a follow-up. And the follow-up is usually an email. And I give them, a lot of times it's different people, books to read, meditations. I like 100% of the time do meditations because I think that there is I obviously classic Sagittarius. I believe we're here to learn and grow
Oh yeah.
throughout our lives, that we never change or end. And that certain tools, whether it's yoga, I study Iyengar yoga, it helps me, it's amazing. There's meditation practices. I give people tools for them to find what works for them based on their chart. So generally we all have some inner child healing to do, right? Generally we all have some health things. And there's certain people that are amazing that I think everybody should know about. One of them is Louise Hay,
Oh
who
yeah.
is just like, she's just amazing. I know she's passed away, but I still use present tense. She's amazing. Um, her meditations are incredible, and they're incredible for everything, for money, for finance, for health, for family, for everything. And so I generally give people a lot of resources after the reading for them to
Mm.
be able to use it. And that's where the coach part comes in, because I just started adding a series of astrology readings for people over a period of months, because the idea is to make changes that last, right? So you get a reading, you understand more about yourself, you're committed and connected. And I want to leave people with tools, because you're sort of excited and you're enthused, but how do you maintain that, right? How do you grow that? How do you use that? We all need people to help us. And sometimes people realize, God, I need to get new friends. I need to change my job. I need to change my life. That's a lot to process on your
Oh
own.
yeah.
And so I say I'm the astrology coach. It's not like I'm a personal coach one-on-one, but I do readings for people often. So that's why it sort of became the astrology coach, because the point of it is, I don't just say you're this, or this is what happened, or this is in your chart. I want people to see how they can use it. So for example, if they have a lot of things going on in their fourth house, which is the house of family and home, I'll say this is a time to look at that. What is home to you? What is family to you? Do
Mhm.
you have a good relationship with your birth family? It's fine if you don't, because family can be chosen family. That's absolutely true. But there's ancestry, there's family ties. And so it's looking at that. Sometimes when the career is in a heightened point, I say, hey, this is really a time where this is focused for you. How are you feeling? And a lot of times people will say, I'm not feeling great. And it's like, okay, well, the universe wants you to feel great. So what is it you want to do? And sometimes it's change a job. Sometimes it's speak up at the office. I want a promotion, whatever it is. But that's where the code, because I want it to be, obviously you'll feel seen with the reading and you'll feel connected, but then what? I want it to be a platform to grow. And of course, the idea is people get readings ideally every year, or every 6 months, because we have these eclipses that really put a whammy
Yeah,
in our
yeah.
life and start things over. So yearly, definitely. And it's a sort of check-in with you and what's going on. And again, it's not like I'm not a fortune teller. Everybody has free will, right? The stars do not make us do anything. There's no I'm a this, right? And that's why I did that. It's like, no, then that means you're lazy, right? Because if somebody is totally their sign, that's actually not a good sign, because we're not supposed to be the worst parts of our sign, because it's generally not the good parts. It's generally the bad parts. So the idea is to know it and to use it to improve. And that's where the sessions what I want to leave people with is, yes, being seen. And these are areas of growth for you. And depending on the reading, if it's a synastry relationship reading, to give the information, but also to give tools. If you have a lot of healing that needs to be done in a certain area, I'll give tools of meditations, readings, different things that have worked for me. And generally that's like the push of like, find, these are things that work, find what works for you, and tell me about things you find, because I love to share the information. That's why I have the site, The Diamond Is You, for people to go and see articles, whether it's about, different astrological transits or signs, or, I just did an article on Sagittarius moons that I'm going to be doing a lot of press because we have a lot of famous people with Sagittarius moons that are not being great in the world.
Hmm.
And I think it's important for us to look at it because we can see where am I, like I always say, where am I doing that? Because every month we have the moons a couple of times in all the signs. And so during those periods, we're all going to be acting more like that. So I want people to see that it's fluid. It's something to be useful and practical. This isn't like, oh, it's just out there. It's like, no, you should be happy. And if you haven't healed or are working to heal your childhood pains, your abandonment issues, your money issues, your health, then we have a problem. You deserve that. So let's talk about that. So yeah,
That makes total
it's time to
sense.
get.
Yeah, I understand. And thank you so much for explanation. I remember when somebody did the astrology reading also for myself. She also gave me some kind of recommendations because it's so hard to understand. They have to explain like it's not just like a copy. It's there are some maybe some numbers, some symbol explanation. There is bunch of stuff about it, but it's really nice and it's all connected. Also like the old civilizations, like the May civilizations in like the South America, they knew this stuff, so it's part of our life. But back in the days when you say like astrology, I was like, we're gonna burn it because you're astrologer, or just like what is spirituality, back in the days people literally were burning those kind of people, like in Europe, what's our according to history. But these days it's more open because people are more open as well, which is really good. I'm so happy about it. They just have
We're
to,
coming back to
yeah,
the earth, we're coming back to these things that, astrology used to be studied at, Oxford University and Cambridge. There are all these people that are talking about. These are wisdoms that have been around for thousands of
yeah,
years,
yeah.
just like the herbs, just like understanding the cycles of harvest and food and our bodies and all these things. These are natural ingredients that are around us. I don't know why astrology works. I'm always like, listen, I have no idea when I look at your chart. I can tell you about yourself. I think it's crazy too, but it's true. So let's just work with that.
Yeah,
Like, let's just,
basically it's better to have this kind of information than not have any information about yourself, because like,
this is what I'm, yeah,
because if, for example, if you ask your mama like, mama, can you just tell me who am I, she's gonna reply, yeah, you're my child, I love you, you had very great grades, like the marks at school, that's all. I was like, but I want to know who am I, so can you please tell me like what am I supposed to do in this life. They can tell you if they know you very well. They can tell you, but in some cases, it's like, well, I think you just have to figure out. And then the question is like, okay, how am I gonna figure out? Then you just open internet. Okay, Google help me, or these days AI help me. How can I find
yeah.
myself? Who am I? Suddenly, you have access to the information that our parents haven't had a couple of decades ago. Which is like,
Amazing. It's
it's
amazing. And
amazing.
connection too. There's also location astrology. Let me tell you, I would not move anywhere before talking to my location astrologer. I don't do that. It's another area of astrology, but
Mhm.
where you live is extremely important and powerful for your connection.
Oh yeah.
Moving is one of the most spiritual things in our lives. It's why it's traumatic because it's, the Kabbalists teach that you're getting a new soul when you move. I mean, it's not small. And so when you move and where you move, it has certain lines and it changes, right? So, for example, when I moved to Los Angeles, I remember I went to this, I was gifted this because at the time I was not into it. And this astrologer was like, yeah, you go to LA. I don't know, sort of like why, but yep, for you, yep. And I had so much change and happen and so much growth. And then when felt like I was supposed to not spend time there, I got a reading and I was going to go spend some time in Paris. And they were like, yep, that's where you should go. And so there's all kinds of tools and information in this world that we're coming back to that have been around. And I find that so exciting, especially amidst these times where people are feeling so lost. We have the answers within. We just have to be honest um, and be real with that. And sometimes that is so challenging because we can go against our culture,
Oh
right?
yeah.
If somebody's living in a small town wherever and they feel to go live in Bali or they feel to go live in France or New York City, what are you doing? And you're upsetting what they want. And, we're all tied together, but people have a dream and a vision for a reason. And to go and explore is a beautiful thing, especially and even if it's in your hometown. I do a lot of readings or speaking at coaching events lately. And one of the things I say is everybody talks about like, oh, it's so brave to go and move across the world. I think it's brave to get married and have a bunch of children
Oh
and
yeah, as
stay in a
well.
town. It's also brave. You know what I mean? It's like we're thinking it has to be something out there, and no, everybody's life has bravery, you know? So that's why I do it, why I love it. And also I see how it helps people. I see how it connects people. I mean, look, I'm talking to you from Bali. I didn't know somebody in Bali. I mean, I know a couple people, but like, you know, it's when we get outside of ourselves and we want to connect, it's amazing what happens, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that makes literally sense. I have a question that is connected also to your previous job when you worked for the medias and also to the job that you have right now. Your mission is not job. I wouldn't call it job. It's a mission because you're doing the stuff that you really love. What did you like the most about the previous job when you're working for the medias in New York City? And what do you like the most about your current job, your current mission?
There's no question what I love about being a journalist is it's learning. You're constantly learning. You're constantly learning because there's so much to learn. So whether you're interviewing somebody and you're researching, or there's some advancement that you're studying or
Mm-hmm.
some law, it's the constant learning. Classic Sagittarius. That's my favorite part. The part about the astrology that I love, it's the ability to help people,
Oh, wow.
the ability to help people. It's teaching. I mean, journalism, it involves teaching because you write a story and you're informing, right? Which is a form of teaching. But with the astrology, it really is caring for people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, seeing the ability to see somebody and have somebody, you know, feel like they are seen, like they're valued, like their story, their pain, their challenge. That is really what this world is all about, is our connection with each other. And that is what I love about the readings, because it's incredible. I mean, it really is incredible watching somebody feel excited, feel energized, feel like I'm going to go do it after every reading. Like, that is the sweet sauce. That's it. That's it. Because that's the greatest gift I think we can give each other, right? Is to be there for each other and to inspire to go forward.
And
You're what sign?
I'm Towers.
Exactly. Taurus. Exactly. Taurus. You know, and I don't know if you saw, I did a bunch of, because I love this fun fact. Well, because Taurus, you know, you love food, you love
Oh,
luxury. But what the thing is, and I learned this in France because they're all about words, luxury, the root word is lux, and that means light.
that means light.
And I think that's such a light, like the light of the
I
world.
like
And I
that.
think that's such a beautiful root word, a beautiful focus for Taurus, because, you know, unfortunately people can say, oh, they like luxury. And that, no, luxury is light. Like we should all want luxury, because it doesn't mean you have, you know, an expensive car. It means you're living a life
Hmm.
that is light filled, that for you, what fills you is around you. It's like, yeah, that is the goal. It's also a sign of a healer, by the way, Taurus,
Yeah,
sign of a healer.
that's what I love. That's why I have Inspiruka, and it's part of the healing also for myself. Like you said,
Exactly.
journals help you to have so many, let's say, answers to those questions because when you interview somebody, you're also learning, or when you coach somebody or where you are presenting in front of the audience, you also learn something about yourself, which is really great. That's why I love this idea. And I have also follow-up questions about astrology, like the way you help your let's say clients. What was the best case, like the biggest shift? For example, somebody came to you and was really, for example, down. And after your astrology reading, suddenly his or her life shifted in a positive way. And within a few months, you could see the like biggest progress you ever could see.
I have to say, most of the people I do readings with, that is what I see. And I know as I do more and more readings, that's going to be challenging because I do care. And so I'll send them messages or I'll send them
Oh
videos.
yeah, yeah.
But that generally is what happens. I'm not saying I know it's the person and they're on an amazing trajectory. So I'm glad to have helped. But um, in one particular case, which kind of still surprises me, a, I did a reading for a couple
Wow.
separately.
Hmm.
So I did a reading for the woman, and she said, I want to, you know, do a reading for my boyfriend. And I did a reading for him. and they were separate. And I don't share information with people. And I did the reading, and the next morning I get a message from her that basically says we were up all night. It was not good. He told me some things, and these things I was like, girl, peace out, like later for him. They broke up for a couple years, and he worked to win her back. And I mean, it's been many, many years now, and they're together. But it was such a horrible sort of betrayal and pain and all this stuff that watching the journey of this woman stand up for herself, of this relationship go through, and then for them to find their way back together is just to me a beautiful story of, love and heart and change and process, but also like I was completely shocked,
Hmm.
completely shocked. So yeah, that to me was just, I mean, I just thought that's over. Like that's over. But where there's love, where there's care, where there's effort, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And these are people whose charts didn't really look in alignment, but it's because people will say to me, oh, this chart, like, we don't get along. That's not what it's about. If somebody has a certain energy and somebody has another energy, you're gonna have to work.
Hmm.
That's it. That's all it is. That in itself can be too much, right? Because it requires selflessness, it requires being uncomfortable, all these things. But it's something that I watch people do all the time. So yeah, I love it. But that to me was just, I mean, I thought that's it.
Wow.
And they're happily together, maybe 10 years. So yeah, yeah.
That's what
It's amazing to
That's what personal development basically does. Like you really find out. I see it
yes,
here in Bali. I see it
yes.
like I see so many singles, men and women. They are single. They sometimes meet, sometimes break up, whatever. But they are single because they feel like, oh, you know, I want to search for myself. I want to know who am I. Pa 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 pa. And they always blame into spiritual stuff. And I tell them, just guys, you are already between the age of 30 to 45 years. So you don't want to just, let's say, f around, like let's
Yeah,
say
yeah,
this
of
way.
course. Yeah, no, you want to be serious.
we
Yeah,
were born we were born to this planet like to build our generation, to have family, to enjoy this kind of stuff. That's why we have also, like, we have parents, we have grandparents, grandparents, we have grandchildren, whoever is the generation, But I was like, yeah, it's their journey. Like, I have some of my friends, also 40s. They had so many relationships. They even had the relationships for a couple of years. Then they break up because they want to find out who they are. So basically, what I'm trying to say, personal development, whether it's just astrology or whatever, it
yeah,
could either just separate you from somebody or make you stronger, or you can just come back in a few years, or you just break up forever. It's supposed to be aligned with your soul. Basically, you just have
exactly.
to listen to your soul. That's what I see. And when you start listening to your soul, and it's really pure calling from your soul that doesn't hurt anybody, just literally here to serve, that's the best. But people have to make sure it cannot be like, this is a nice call, like spiritual ego.
Exactly.
Spiritual ego.
Exactly.
That's what is happening.
Yeah.
Like, I meditate every single day, like for 1 hour. I go for a matcha coffee. I have these people and that. Why are you putting yourself in front of me? It's nice that I'm happy for you, but the way you explain, it's coming from spiritual ego. It's not
Exactly.
yourself. But people don't
This
understand.
is where But this is where challenging, and this is
Yeah.
why with astrology, it's sort of like, oh, a lot of times people say, I'm so selfless, no, you're selfish. You like to pretend. So this is why my readings, I'm not Miss Airy Fairy. Oh, you're amazing. It's like, no, you're lying, or you're doing this, or you're choosing the way out. A lot of times, Libras in particular say, oh, there was this one Libra in particular who said, oh, I'm just, I'm so balanced. I'm so balanced. And I was like, a Libra is the opposite of balanced, because if you stand on a fence for too long, you get impaled.
Mhm.
So staying in the middle is not the goal of life. It's about making choices, and it's about making aligned choices, and from an empowered place and from a heart. That's why they're ruled by Venus. But when they say, oh, it's like, oh, please.
I understand.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
That's beautiful. So we are coming to the end of our beautiful
Yes.
conversation. I have a question that I always ask our guests, which is like, what message would you give to the people all over the world? So now it's your time for a message.
I wish for everybody to know how special and amazing and important they are and loved they are. I think that's it. If we feel that, then we have everything and we can be everything that we want to be. So I would want for everybody to feel that love and that care and that connection, to know that they're valuable. Yeah.
This was our another episode. I hope you liked watching it. I hope you found the inspiration that we were looking for. So this is not the last episode we're gonna make. There will be more episodes coming soon. So if you are still looking for a motivation, inspiration, you would like to spread the idea of motivation and inspiration to the other people, you want to support your family, and together we can create a big community, feel free to subscribe our channel, give us some comments, recommendations, feedbacks, and if you have any idea for somebody who is so special, just give it, send us the information about these people, and later on we can record the podcast for you. So until next time, see you soon and stay safe.